Yeah, so you gonna come and sit down, or
You want to go in the middle?
that's it? Yeah. Okay.
Come on. Grenadiers.
Years worth of being choreographed, and now we can't work out. Hang on a second. Right, we're there.
Hi, my name's Mark Ketchen. I was in the army for 18 years. I was a musician and a combat medic. I was in the Royal Hampshires for 8 years. I went to Northern Ireland for 2.5 years, etc. And then I was in the Grenadier Guards for the last 10 years, doing all ceremonial stuff. I'm now a director of business development at Corps.
Hi, my name's Sean Clark. I was in the Royal Navy for 7 years. I was a radar plotter in the operations room. I served in the Mediterranean, South Atlantic and in the West Indies. I am now a sales director of IoT in Corps.
Hi, I'm Richard Tuke. I spent 10 years as an infantry officer. I left in 2007 as a major. Spent time in the Balkans, in Northern Ireland, as well as other parts of the UK and Germany. I now work for Corps Wireless as Vice President of Sales, running Europe and Asia Pacific.
Why did you choose the military as a career?
I came from a military family. My mother's side of the family was in the army, my father's side was in the Navy. To some extent, I think, although it wasn't a conscious decision, I think it was more or less a foregone conclusion. I was going to go into some form of military service, given my background. Oddly, I think it was the Falklands conflict in 1982 that, as a 7-year-old, to some extent, inspired me to want to join the army. And from that moment forward, I think I decided that my career was going to be in the army.
I decided to join the Armed Forces, particularly Royal Navy, early during the school years, really. There wasn't a lot of things to do when you left school, where at that time in the 80s, late 1970s. So I then just decided to join the Armed Forces, and particularly the Royal Navy.
And what about you, Mark? Similar story, or?
Similar, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was written for me. I was in boarding schools and things like that, and I was in Cubs, Sea Cadets. I played the recorders. So I tried to join the Marines at 15, couldn't. Then the Army Junior School of Music opportunity came up. So I went and did an audition and got in on potential. So that was Junior Leaders Regiment. So I joined at 16.
And so during your military year, you served a number of years there. What was the biggest challenge that you faced? Was it actually trying to get into the military, or was there a point during your career that was a bit nerve-wracking?
I think there's many nerve-wracking points, really, because you put yourself into extreme situations, if you know what I mean. So it was just kind of how I'm driven by challenge, just kind of suited me quite a lot. So yeah.
I think to some extent the biggest challenge was turning up on day one. You decide that you want to do this, and then you leave the comfort of the home environment into the complete unknown, and then in my case it was walking through the gates of Sandhurst, or for you to the gates of another establishment, and that's it. You signed up your life 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and don't really know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And I think for me, certainly, that was the initial biggest challenge, was just turning up.
Same for me. It was the first few weeks at HMS Raleigh when you join the training establishment, and it's very strict, regimented. You are told what to do, where to do it, and when not to do things as well. So that was there's a big change from living from home and basically not being told what to do all the time and where to be, but also being away for a long period of time as well. I used to spend 3-4 months away from home when on board a ship as well. So that was a big adjustment.
I think that's something. If I think about life now versus life then, and the perceptions of people who've been in the military into the corporate world, I think you just said it, showing being told what to do and what to do. I actually don't think it's like that at all. The point of the initial training is to is to give you a structure to solve problems, to teach you to work as a team. But by and large, certainly the rest of my military career, and I imagine for the pair of you, was figuring out how you solve different sorts of problems. For which there's not necessarily a templated solution to do it, but we're all given a framework through our training to figure out how to solve problems.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's an objective, and how do you achieve it? That was it. You're sort of driven to do that and to do better. And in any environment that you're sort of put into, I think that's quite.
Do you think the element of a military career, obviously there's going to be some stressful, hairy moments as well. Do you think that some of those big challenges that you faced in some of the campaigns that you were a part of actually shaped you into the person that you are now?
I think it helps to put a perspective on things. If you're under pressure, if you've got decisions to make within seconds, rather than sit down and think about things, you have to make the right decision. And if you make the wrong decision, things could go very wrong. So, in the life that I have now, in the job that I have now, then you get time to think and make sure that hopefully you've made the right decision. But if you make the wrong decision, it's different to when you're in the forces making those decisions. So it's just a different perspective on things.
I think it's I suppose the thing that we probably all carried forward from our military careers into our life is a sense of just getting things done. I think as Sean said, if you're sat on a ship and you've got to fix something, you have to fix it, and you can only fix it with what you've got. And I think probably for all of us coming into say a sales career is we face different forms of challenges on a daily basis, but it's an overriding desire to just find a path through that particular problem and fix it with what we've got.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and so Mark, did you find it tough? I mean, you spent a number of years there. Was it tough transferring into civilian life and not having that structure that you spoke about? And then were there learnings that you took from the military? I think Richard just touched on a few there.
It was slightly more challenging than I had anticipated, because I thought in the Grenadiers, we were a lot of ceremonial in London work. So I was more connected than I was when I was in my first regiment. More soldier-based activities, if you like, and. So yeah, it was slightly more challenging, and it was an element of feeling a little bit lost, for sure. And in corporate, this type of environment absolutely replaces that, and everything I learned from the military has helped me sort of achieve what I've achieved today, if you like. For sure.
Same as Mark. I think as soon as when you leave the armed forces, as I said earlier, you're told where to be, what to do. Everything is done for you. So you just have to, think about your job and your role and what you have to do. When you leave the armed forces, it's totally different, because you're not told where to be. You're not told what to do, and you have to adjust to that freedom, I guess I could call it. That's the biggest adjustment I had to make, I think, when I left.
I think for me, the hardest part of transition was the loss of identity. So I'd grown up thinking I'm going to be in the armed forces, I'm going to be an army officer, and that has its own identity. It has an element of job pride. Suddenly leaving, and that identity is taken away from you. And in my case, I went into work for BT. I wasn't necessarily particularly proud of what I was doing, and I think for me that was the biggest adjustment, going from a job I was enormously proud of into something that just felt like a normal run of the mill job.
That is too true.
So how did you deal with that? That initial weeks, months, days. How did you then, from a role that was very told what to do, what to wear, how to turn up, that was very structured, to something which then you had to do off your own back?
I think it's, for me, certainly it was less about the structure, being told what to do. I think it was more trying to understand this new world. So every organisation has a hierarchy. I think in the armed forces that hierarchy is much clearer. We know the rank structures, we know who does what, and it's going into the corporate world. Yes, it's still there, but it's a bit more subtle. You can't look at a job title and say that person does that, because operations director of one company might be a different sort of role to the operations director of another company. So that bit I found hard. I think for me, so the initial leaving period was a moment of euphoria where suddenly I had the freedom and I wasn't, my life wasn't controlled. But over time that wore off, and I think dealing with it was just a function of time. I think it is literally nothing more than the longer you spend time in the corporate world, the more you figure out where you want to fit, what you like doing, and then you eventually get to a point where actually, okay, you now feel happy and more settled in what you're doing.
Yeah, and your personality, who you are as a person, how you're driven, what motivates you, how you succeeded in the military, you are able now to do this in the corporate world, and that's what I love. And it fits all sorts of personality types, lots of different roles, so different types of skill sets and what have you. And again, you can just go in and do the same.
Well, I think when you leave the military, the corporate world is seriously confusing. It's like, what job do you want to do? What company do you want to work for? Where do you go? And I think you read lots of things in different articles about the best things to do. And I was reflecting on this. If I had my time again, what I would probably do is just spend a lot of time talking to people, saying, what do you do? What does your company do? What the different functions in your company do? Just to try and get a sense and a picture of how it all works. Because when we all left, we didn't know that.
No, exactly, we didn't. Yeah.
I think that there was some support when we all left, I guess, but it doesn't really give you the thought process or the tools to adjust to what you want to do exactly when you do leave. So that's different, certainly different.
So your primary role was in radar. Now, is that why you stuck to communications and telecoms? And what got, I guess, was that an easier move into the telecoms industry, or was it a friend that just went, I think you'd be good at this job?
Not really. It was because it's fairly niche, working in operations room on a radar when you're talking to other people in ships and in aircraft and doing all that type of work all day. Then the only alternative sort of role is working in, I guess, working radar at an airport, for example. Well, not many airports around. So, what am I qualified for? Well, okay. Well, I looked at what I could probably do and get qualified for, and sales was a role that I think was fairly open and something that I felt that I could adjust into as well. So that's why sales for me.
It was pretty like, what do you do? I mean, I'm creative. In business you can be creative. I was a musician and combat medic and all sorts of other interesting things. But I was good at organising. I was actually naturally quite good at selling, I think, when I thought about it. I love technology. The sense of pride, so I'm doing something that's cutting edge, so that sort of ticks that box, if you like, scratches that itch for me. I think that was what sort of got me into telecoms. It was it wasn't a deliberate choice, but I was steered into telecoms, and I've not looked back for the last 10 years. Really, I've made it a career. I think. But
and so if there are other men, women coming out of the forces, would you promote telecoms and core as a good step into that corporate life?
I think so. I think it's I'll come back to, this is all about spending time talking to people and finding what the right home is. From my perspective, I love core because it's a small company. We can get things done relatively quickly. I mean, nothing simple, and there's an element of deciding to do something and then joining up the dots behind us. But because it's a small enough company, or an agile company, we can do that, and it makes it fun. And to some extent, no one day is the same, and in some mornings, what I thought I was going to wake up and do is not what I ended up doing the time I finished the day.
I think the thing with sales is no 2 days are the same. Every day is a different day, and I think that the things that you pick up and the things you learn in the armed forces is that you can adjust and adapt and change to things as well. So that element really helps in terms of moving into sales, because you can change and adapt, and you think differently, and you think outside the box, which I think is really important in sales. So yeah,
I think it's. I mean, when I left, I had no idea what I was going to do. I fell into British Telecom by accident, and then that branded me as telecoms for the rest of my career. I'm not technically minded. I rely on other people to help me there. I think from my perspective, this is all about people. This is why I enjoy doing it. I lead a fantastic team of people. I think leadership was something that the Army invested a lot of time training me to do, and I had time to practice, and I brought into my civilian career. From a sales perspective, I think if somebody had said to me when I left, you're going to be in sales, and I looked and thought, there's no way I'm doing that. I had a negative perception of what sales is about, and what I will say is it's not that. It's all about talking to people, talking to customers, understanding what they want, and then trying to persuade them that what we do is the best answer for them. And again, it's not. I don't think it's that external perception. People might think just trying to constantly flog, say, double glazing or whatever. It's much more conversational. It's much more consultative, and it's much more about people and respect.
What a lovely point to finish on. Well, I just want to thank yourself, Mark, Sean, Richard, for joining me today, having a look at veterans and IoT.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
For more information on careers at Core, please go to eu.corewireless.com.
I told you.
Did you get to keep any weapons?
Yeah.
No, but I know a guy that used to be a sniper in the army. I could.
Shotgun's better. It's more of an area weapon.
He's got 3 shotguns.
I'll get my trombone out. That'll do it
Every time.
Well, you're not supposed to scare them to death.
Man of many talents.
Get them all walking in line.
Oh dear, I love that. Okay.